The next database that I'm going to cover is the New York Times Historical database. Many or most of you have already been required to search this during in-class activities or possibly on your own. So let's do it together as a refresher. So as always, oh sorry, I went through that without even saying what I was doing. You always want to hover over research, go to databases, then go to N for New York Times. Okay. Now, I cannot stress this enough to you guys. So New York Times is obviously a still currently being published newspaper. And Westfield has access to current issues of the New York Times. So like literally never pay to have a subscription to the New York Times. Well, I mean, unless you want to because you want to support it. But like you can access all of that through your the subscriptions that the university has, and you have that privilege because you're students here. So, but do not worry about the current up-to-date things. You need to go to the New York Times Historical Collection. All right. Now, this is one of my favorite fucking cookies. Literally, this is like going to all be. All right, go in. So here's what we're gonna do. What is down here? Why is that spinning? Okay, so here's what I'm gonna tell you to do. All right. This database gives you access to all of the New York Times articles in full text. Now, not just articles, ads, freaking everything from the New York Times from 1851 until this is 2018 because that's when this fully digitized version is up to at this point. But that's just because the last like 5 or 6 years are considered part of the current New York Times collection. Okay, so I can't tell you how incredible this is in terms of a research database. So let me give you some examples. Let's say I'm doing a research paper related to energy prices in like the 1970s. Okay, so there was like an oil and gas crisis in the United States in the 1970s. So let's see what the New York Times had to say about it. Okay, now OPEC, you have to envision at this point, if you're using the New York Times database, it likely means that you have already done some research on a particular topic. Okay, so that being said, OPEC is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries that would have been relevant in this topic. Okay, and then I'll put gas prices. Okay, so OPEC and gas prices. All right, now here's where it's really, really important. You are searching the New York Times database as a primary source. So the best way to get results that are most applicable to what you want is underneath the search bars, go to publication date. Okay, so specific date range, and this happened in the 1970s. So I'll do the whole 1970s. I'll do 1970 to 1979. All right, now here's another cool thing. You can pick any day, any month, and you can limit the search even further. And this is actually really useful if you're looking for something that happened like right after a major event, like if you wanted to like after like I don't know, Pearl Harbor or something like that, and you wanted to look at like what was American reactions or news coverage or something like that. For our purposes here, I'm just going to do 70 to 79. But here's what's really cool. The database will automatically fill in and have it be from January 1st, 1970 to December 31st, 1979. So it's going to give me the whole decade. Okay? So let's see what I can find. As expected, there are an absolute ton of articles on this topic. okay? This was huge news. It was all over the place, right? So we can see 79, 75, 77, 77, 79, 74, right? So we've got all this information. And it's got information specifically related to how OPEC is dictating these gas prices at this time. Oh, pardon me. Okay, so then once you get really good results like this, then you just have to kind of sort through them, right? Now, here's where it gets even cooler. When you click on these, it's going to open up to the actual newspaper article. And you can, see what it looked like in print, basically. And here's my favorite thing. You don't have to do this, but I think it's really cool, is that when you click over here on page view, it'll show you what that whole page of the paper looked like. Okay. Now, this might not be useful for a lot of you, but it actually is a really beneficial thing, because here's what I want you to picture. Say you come to a particular topic that's like a very specific event or something that happened, and you say to yourself, I want to know what else was going on when this event happened, right? Like, what's the context? What else is in the news? You can literally see it so easily, right? You could literally just go and scroll around and look at the newspaper, okay? You could even go, see how it says page 51 of 76? So the newspaper is long, right? New York Times is a big paper, and this is probably not even, this isn't the Sunday paper. The Sunday paper is like 200 pages long. But you could go to page 1, and you can see what did the front page of the newspaper look like on that day, right? It's this really good way to see what were the important news topics in that particular time period, okay? And of course, the New York Times is beneficial in a number of different ways, but the big thing is that it's giving you overviews of what's happening in different historical time periods for different topics, but it also is really good at giving you like how things are portrayed. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'll give you an example. So, let me go back. Oh, try not to stop the recording while I do this. Okay, so OPEC is Organization of Petroleum Exporting Companies, and it's based in mainly the Middle East. So I wonder, let's say my research question is, did the actions of OPEC in the 1970s create anti-Middle East or anti-Muslim hostility, feelings, whatever? The New York Times would be a great place to find something like that, okay? Let's see if I do OPEC. What if I do OPEC and Muslim? Same time frame. I'm not going to change the date range because I don't need to. Letters to the editor. Let's see. Oh, this could be bad. Oh, no, that's not relevant. There's one article about OPEC, and then there's one article about India and Pakistan. So, well, let me tell you what happens here. So I searched for OPEC and I searched for Muslim. What it did here is it gave me one article that's about OPEC and then a separate article that's about the Middle East or Muslim, because the search engine is just searching for those things in any place in an article, right? So that's actually kind of good. Well, although perhaps that means my research question isn't great. But it's still like a good idea. Like, oh, did a particular crisis cause a particular perspective on a group, right? And so New York Times articles are a great way to do that because you're able to see how was a topic portrayed in the media, okay? And in the past, like in old-timey times, some of the ways that certain groups were portrayed is extremely prejudiced and discriminatory, negative or positive. Like you can actually glean a lot of information from that. What's the other piece of advice I was going to? Oh, let me tell you one more tip. So, okay. I don't know why this is spinning. Like, what is this spinning about? Okay. It's like it's not showing all the stuff. No? No? Hold on. I fear my cookie preferences might have messed this up. I don't friggin' know. So usually down here there's another. I might have to redo this video if I can't get this to work, but there's like a thing here that lets you pick which type of article you want to be available to you, because I'm sure you noticed that that last page said letter to the editor, whereas when I did OPEC and gas prices, these are articles as opposed to letters to the editor. But they also even have ads and stuff like that in the New York Times. So it's just an absolutely incredible way, a giant searchable, scrollable, PDFable database of every topic essentially that's happened on a global scale from 1851 to present, because the New York Times is considered a global news source, right? Because it's such a huge newspaper. It's a great way. It's a great source. Many of you will use it in all different ways. Okay?